For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. I've got a question for you, dear listeners out there in podcast land. Are parents raising the handout generation? I'm going to take a moment, let it sit there. Are parents raising the handout generation? I'm going to explain what I mean coming up on The Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here on The Scribble. You know, several years ago, the whole thing on social media used to be, it's my birthday, send nudes. At least amongst the gay community that I had seen at that time, right? That was kind of the joke, right? It's my birthday. Now people actually have the gall, I'm not going to use the word gall, to essentially ask for money. They post it on social media. It's my birthday. Here's my Venmo. Or even have Venmo linked in their profile on Instagram. And so, first of all, actually, let me just say that if I were single, because I know that a lot of people are using social media to meet people, and you know, it's almost become dating apps at this point. If I were a single guy, remember there's the whole gay thing in my situation, so that makes it even worse because gay men are traditionally known as being superficial. I got to tell you, if I saw, a hot guy, he's everything, he's got, the muscles, he's tanned, he's whatever, and I go and click the bio and I see that he's got a Venmo or a PayPal donation link. Sorry, dude. Sorry. Now, before anybody goes and says, oh, well, Jeremy Bradley's really a prize. Oh, really? It's that guy's loss. No, I'm just saying. And you have to remember that I landed a very hot Brazilian fitness model, bodybuilder. So I'm taking myself out of the equation here. I'm not prowling social media for men. I'm just saying, because I know how, and what I'm saying is it's the guys that are doing are they still called thirst trap, or is that like 3 years old already, 5 years old? The thirst trap is still the term. If I were one of those guys doing that, I've got this cocky attitude about how great my body is, right? I want the attention. And then all of a sudden I've got, here's a link to give me money. There's a disconnect there. There's just something that doesn't add up. Yes, you can be hot and poor at the same time. Sure. But what I'm saying is you're putting this image of you're this amazing model-like guy, crazy physique, just built and ripped or whatever. But you're poor as all fuck, buddy. And I gotta say, that's not the most appealing quality. Here's the thing. don't say that I'm a gold digger, because my guy comes from Brazil, not a very, rich country, and certainly he came from a very, very poor area. So it's not like I was like rich and hot, and no, that wasn't the case at all. And at the same time, he could look, my husband can look at that and go, oh my God, Canadian, rich Canadian, whatever. No, well, here's the thing. I have never, ever, ever, and you can ask my team, you can, whoever, I have never given my husband actual money. Like, I have never, here's $500. Here's the, never. Because I heard that early on in the relationship, people, mismatch, and the little scrawny pale Canadian, and the big, well, that's a sugar daddy, whatever. Nope. First of all, let me just put it this way. I'm known as Winnipeg Cheapskate in my hometown. I had a best-selling book. I had a newspaper column about saving money and, not just... So Winnipeg Cheapskate is going to be the last person just handing out money because somebody is hot. No, not happening. Not happening. Actually, quick story here. So my husband came to visit. We've been like 9 years already. But when he first came to visit, it was Christmas. And he came at Christmas Eve time. And so... He came on Christmas Eve. It was Christmas time when he came. So, well, more than you know. But then when the second he came, he was here for Christmas, and then he went back to Brazil, and then he came back to North America about a month later. I think it was the end of January. So, yeah, almost exactly a month later. And we had gone to the mall, and there's all these new products, right? There's lots of different Canadian and American products he'd never seen before, and much more selection in the stores than what he was used to. And he had asked me, because he only had $80 American for that visit. And I was like, well, I mean, this is a good lesson then. First of all, in Winnipeg, where I'm from, and where we were at the time, $80 might get you something. Remember, we're going back 9 years. We're not talking about this whole inflation thing now. $80 in Los Angeles or West Hollywood, where we live now, $80 is, that's barely lunch for the two of us. But anyway, so we went to the mall, and then we went to a drugstore, and he was looking at different hair products and things like that. And then there was this, I don't know what it was. I'm going to say hair gel, but that's going to date me. It's some sort of a hair product. And I believe it was $24. And so he wanted to get it or whatever. I said, here's the thing. You've got to manage your money. You're here for however many days you're here for. I can't remember. He was here for a week or 5 days or whatever it was. I said, you've got to manage that. So whether that's, you buying us lunch or I don't know, whatever, buying drinks or something if we go to a lounge or whatever, like that's what you have for the time here. It's not going to be that you're just going to blow that and all of a sudden you're going to come to me, who's the cash machine. It's not happening. And so, why I wanted to do that, first of all, was to set the tone of, yes, I have a lot of money. Yes, I've been very successful. And I mean, he listened to our radio shows, so he knew, who I was and what I was doing. And I was doing Hollywood events and red carpets and things like that. So there was kind of no hiding that I did have money. And so, when he came at Christmas, it was a very much like a bachelor and bachelorette kind of dates, right? Like it was just everything. We had these fancy dinners and everything, and they were all provided because it ended up being a thing with the radio show. We kind of tied it all in. So we had companies giving us a whole bunch of free shit and meals and excursions and activities and whatever. So it was exactly what you see play out on The Bachelor and Bachelorette. But the second time when he came, that's where I purposely said, okay, well, if we're seeing where this goes and how things are, it's going to be real world situation. Meaning, none of the fancy wining and dining. Because even when he came at Christmas, I wasn't paying a damn thing for that. We got a $250 gift card to the fancy steakhouse provided by the steakhouse. But I mean, we interviewed them and we did a segment and, so there was an exchange of services and promotion. So that's why I said, now that your second visit is going to be the real deal. It's me on a regular work schedule. It's going to be, household chores and shit like that. Like that's what it's going to, it's not, don't think that it's just going to be, we're going to go clubbing every night. We might be able to do some of those things, but you're coming. So the end of January is award show season for me. So, you're coming in this busy time. He came on an off week. So it was in between. Award shows are usually like every 2 weeks. Sometimes if there's a schedule change, it'll be every other weekend. But, every 2 weeks. So he had arranged it. So he flew to Canada. And I had a few days in Palm Springs just to unwind. And so we were both flying back to Canada on the same day. He got to Canada a few hours before me. But yeah, it was kind of like, now this is going to be real world shit. So it's going to be, washing the dishes and walking the dogs and chores and all that other stuff. But again, if we're going to go shopping, I'm not going and buying you a shit ton of clothes. I mean, that's just not, and I never have done that. So anyway, so now fast forward to what I was just saying about our parents raising it's disturbing actually, because there's this expectation that people have on social media that, I'm going to use the word strangers because, I mean, what percentage of your quote-unquote friends or followers on social media have you actually met in person, right? So they're strangers. They are strangers. Seeing somebody's feed for a month, they're still a stranger. Maybe you get a sense of the personality they're putting forward on social media, which, as we know, can be completely different in real life, but they're still a stranger. So the fact that people just have this expectation of, just putting your Venmo link there, because let's say that you have 20,000, well, let's even bump it up to 50,000. Let's say you have 50,000 followers. I mean, I'd be interested to know, just because you've put that there, how many people are going to open that, especially in today's economy? How many people are going to open that and go, I'll give them $50 just because? Do people do that? I don't know. I call it's online panhandling is what it is, right? Because it's no different than somebody sitting on the street corner with a coffee cup and a cardboard sign saying, starving, can you spare $1? And I'm not knocking people that do that. There are people that are struggling and certainly do need the money, but I'm just saying, you put off this, or you put out this glamorous life that you've got an amazing, you can afford a gym membership. I see you in the gym with your selfies. You can afford to do the raves and the concerts, and I see your Beyonce video at the concert and Taylor Swift concert. I mean, those aren't cheap tickets, but yet you have the gall to have a Venmo link in your profile and just expect people to give you money. So it's one thing to do that on an everyday basis, and I think it's actually the worst to do that on your birthday. I've never been one of those people who announces that it's my birthday and, I don't, another year around the sun, and then there's a picture of me because I want compliments about how good I look and I want people to say happy birthday. I don't fucking care. Even when I was single, I was not sitting and waiting by my Facebook page to look and see how many happy birthday comments I got. I don't even know if I've looked at last year's yet, quite honestly. Maybe I did. It doesn't mean anything to me. It really doesn't. I appreciate the sentiment, but at the same time, I also realize that those people don't give two fucks that it's my birthday. They're just saying it because Facebook told them it's my birthday. The people who actually call me, or text me and actually know when my birthday is, that means a little bit. But, random strangers, just because my name popped up on your list of people's birthdays today, I mean, it's the thought that counts, yes, but yeah, I could take it or leave it. But, so anyway, it's bizarre to me that, you have this situation where you might have a job, and yes, you might be struggling to get by. At least make it seem like you're broke. At least look sort of. There's a disconnect. There's just a disconnect. That would be like me posting pictures of, red carpets and flying on a private plane, which we do from time to time, but that's because we're traveling with our dogs and we're going from, and then me going and just putting the QR code for my Venmo. I don't know. Don't you find that to be a weird parallel? Like I can't think of the word right now. It's just strange. And so when I've seen teenagers do this, where they're maybe 15, I don't know how old, let's just say 15 years old. I guess that's the age that you're allowed on social media. Not in Australia, though, right? Is it Australia? But just for them to have that mentality already of give me money. Like, I think back to when I was growing up, we were very lucky to get an allowance. I don't remember exactly what we did for it. I don't know if maybe we had to clean our room. I know we certainly didn't do laundry. We certainly didn't. Maybe we washed dishes. I never cut the grass when I lived with my parents. I don't even now. We have somebody that does it. I don't remember. I just remember that we would get money, and it might have been on my parents' payday. I think. When you're a kid, you don't know that, right? I don't know that you're paid every 2 weeks on Friday or on the 15th or 30th. You don't know that kind of stuff as a kid. But anyway, we got an allowance, and even that was $5. I mean, I don't remember. You have to remember we're going back almost 40 years, right? But you would get, $5 or maybe $10. I think at one point it kind of got bumped up to $20 once we were a little bit older. But think about that. I mean, as a kid, that's a lot of money. What do you buy as a kid? What do you need? Again, we weren't buying phones, computers, tablets, iTunes, Amazon. With that wasn't a thing back then. So you would be buying candy. You would be buying comic books, I guess. Toys, perhaps. But yeah, that was mostly a birthday or Christmas thing. You would get toys, but you might buy your own toy. I don't know. I mean, I started working at a very young age. So for me, the allowance was great because obviously you're not old enough to work, but you would maybe do a chore and then you'd be rewarded for it. It was teaching you that, that's kind of also what a job is in a sense. And so, I started working when I was 13 out at the store out at the lake where my parents have a place still. And it was, you just worked the cash register and you'd sell the groceries or whatever that people would come in to get. It wasn't an actual store, but I mean, it was just kind of a, they had bottles of mustard and ketchup or whatever because people were barbecuing or doing stuff on the fire. And so, we ran out of mustard or we forgot it at home. And then you'd come into the store. It was that kind of a thing. It wasn't it wasn't a Walmart. But, that I got paid there, right? I think we got paid like $5 an hour back then. Or was it $4? No, it was I think it was $5, and the minimum wage was like $6.40. And as a teenager, that was a lot of money. But never, I mean, I never liked getting a handout. So let me just tell you, when I'd started my company, my mid-20s, I'd left a very good paying job at a publishing company, made a shit ton of money, and I ended up bringing our team over here. But before that, it was just me. And so like a lot of entrepreneurs, I had this idea that the money's going to start coming in, immediately. I'm going to be doing this radio thing. I'm going to be doing this newspaper thing. I'm going to put out a book. And for some reason, you just expect that you're going to be paid from day one, I guess, just as you would go to a job. And for me, that wasn't the case. Now, I was not ridiculously spending. I certainly wasn't going and renting office space and buying all this equipment or whatever. I didn't do that. But when it is just you and you're the sole source of income, and it depends on you. This isn't just somebody handing you a check. Right now, you actually I've got to sell the ads for the radio show. I've got to sell my newspaper column. I've got to have the transactions. I've got to facilitate that. I make that happen. And that doesn't happen on day one. So I extended myself where I was in debt and I didn't file bankruptcy. It was called, what was it called? It was called a consumer proposal, I think, in Canada. And what that means is that, I can't even remember what they were called. He wasn't a bankruptcy lawyer. It was more like not a trustee. Whatever it was they had worked with the debt, the companies that I owed money to. And I had about $40,000 in debt because at some point, you kind of start putting things on your credit card and then you do the credit card shuffle game where you use this credit card to pay this credit card. And again, it wasn't that I wasn't going and buying boats and, mishandling money. It was just that the money was not coming in for me. And what I was doing to start to get some credibility in the radio and broadcast entertainment industry was I would have to go to events. So I would fly to Toronto to cover red carpet. And that ended up being $1,000 here. $1,000 there, but it's because you're building that portfolio, right? So it was kind of one of those, you've got to spend money to make money, and that was the situation for me. I wasn't working in physical products where all of a sudden I go and spend $50,000 on inventory that's now sitting in boxes in my house. I was producing, digital content, radio, and so there was no cost to inventory or anything like that, but certainly operating the business of flying somewhere, right? Flying somewhere, going to a hotel, paying the taxi, to do that for one weekend or for even one day for an event was, over $1,000 in some instances. But again, it was just a matter of doing business. So when you've now spent $1,000, you don't have the equivalent of $1,000, not only just to pay that off, but now I've also got my mortgage and feed my dogs and my utilities and everything at home. So that I need to make more than $1,000, right? $1,000 is just recouping what I spent on that business expense. So I had to do this consumer proposal and I had to pay them, I don't remember what it was. I had agreed to, I think it was like $300 every 2 weeks. So I was paying basically like $600 a month for I don't remember, 5 years maybe. And at one point, it got so bad that I had to ask my brother to buy me a box of granola bars from Costco for $7 because it was coming to the end like that. And I remember being in the car with him when we were going, and I just kind of, said, I know we're going to the store. I'm not going to buy anything because I just can't. And then it's humiliating as an entrepreneur. And again, you have to remember that just like those people on social media, I had to put up a front like I was successful, right? Because I'm on the radio, I'm doing these red carpets. Well, surely this guy has money. Well, I did not at the time. Now, yes, now we have 2 houses, both have pools. I retired at 39. Things are good. Because all of a sudden, just out of nowhere in 2010 from 2010 to 2011, the radio shows just really took off. And that's when things got really, really good. But, I ended up having to go to, I guess what you would call the welfare office in Canada. It was a place downtown in Winnipeg. And I just remember feeling so out of place. It was embarrassing because these are the people that I would look down at. These are the people that wanted a government handout. I mean, get away from me, parasites, And it was very humbling because when you're sitting there, you're going, wow, here I am. And it makes you think about people who are on the street or homeless or whatever. It could just be that they lost their job and they didn't do anything wrong. Maybe the company closed and they just weren't able to find work. So it's not necessarily that people were making bad decisions or doing anything reckless in their life. And that's kind of the situation that I was in. I was trying to find work. It's not like I was just one of those people sitting at home collecting money from the government. And I do know people that do that, but I'm just saying, like, this was one of those situations where it gives you a different perspective. I know that when it was, we got to do a break because they've already said I've blown through almost 20 minutes on this segment. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and I will come back and continue on about my thoughts on the entitled society in which we live. Back on the Scribble right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
JB here, back on the Scribble. So just talking about just the sense of handouts that people expect. And I know that as a Canadian, last fall, was it November, when the American government, as I said, we live in West Hollywood too, so I spend a lot of time with Americans, and so and we pay attention to American news. And it was last fall when the American government had that shutdown and people weren't getting their food stamps and truthfully, as a Canadian, this is kind of interesting. We had heard of the term food stamps and we just knew it as welfare is kind of what it was viewed as Canadians. It was just like, food stamps just means it's a government check. We didn't know exactly the program and how it worked. I do now because I'm here. But even then, you had so many people in, was it November or was it October? Whatever it was, you know what I'm talking about because it was a big story. You had a lot of people going and saying, all these people who are freaking out saying, I'm just going to go into grocery stores and start stealing because I'm not getting my subsidies. And you have the two sides of the coin, right? You have the people who are perhaps just taking advantage of it and not working and wanting the handout. And then the people who are working and getting the handout at the same time. And when I use the word handout, that's technically what it is. You're being handed, you're being given something, and that's not, like I said, I collected a welfare check for about 2 weeks or 3 weeks in Canada when I hit my financial low. So I've received it in the past. I'm not saying that I'm better than that. But it was definitely shocking to a lot of people, I think, to hear that 42 or 43 million Americans are basically having groceries subsidized by the government. So I'm not saying that the program is bad. Obviously, if people need it, it's wonderful to have. But is there a dependency on it, is the question. And I think that that's what the big debate was amongst politicians and amongst different groups last fall when it was the hot topic in the news. I certainly, now again, not just because I'm wealthy and we've done, we're well off, but I look at that and go, that's concerning when you have a government of a country, giving money handouts and helping pay for people's food. Like, what is that a symptom of? Is that a symptom of the high cost of living? Is that a symptom of low-paying jobs? Is that a symptom of economies? Is that a symptom of inflation? Is that a symptom of, I mean, what is it? Right? And for me, let me just say, there's something that's so, I mentioned that story about asking my brother, do you know how humiliating that is when you're in your mid-20s? And by the way, you're on red carpets and doing Hollywood events too, right? I mean, so that's kind of thing. You're putting this image to your family of, you know, this globetrotter and doing these things. And then the reality is the money's not coming in. There was money coming in. It's not like I was just doing that stuff but it just wasn't enough to, like I said, you spend $1,000, you need to make more than that to pay off. So I've always looked at it, and that's just the way we were raised, was you make your own money. If I wanted a television in my bedroom as a kid, I had to save up money for it and buy it myself. We were very lucky that my parents bought us a Nintendo. I remember this from Bill's Video. People in Winnipeg will remember Bill's Video. And I remember the price tag on the box. And we're talking like old school price tag, like that pricing gun, and you put the price. That's how it was labeled in the store. $219. Now, as a kid, I mean, come on. That's like $1 million to a kid, because you don't, I mean, right? You don't have a sense of money. You just, $5 is a lot of money. And I just remember seeing that price tag all the time going, wow, we have this that's really expensive. And I just remember thinking, we need to take care of this. We can't, we've got to keep this clean. We've got to make sure it's, we don't break it, because that's expensive. That's just the sense of responsibility that, I don't know that my parents instilled that in me, but that's just the way I felt. And I think because when you've earned, I mean, for me to have a big house, there are times, truthfully, I'm not even making a joke. Yes, I'm in my 40s. There have been times when the house is quiet, or I'll just kind of walk through, I'll look at something and I'll just go, this is mine. I made this happen. I bought this. I bought this because I worked my ass off from the time I was 13 years old, I was working. And, hustling, and then having an office job, and then coming home and taping radio stuff, and doing things on my lunch break at an office job, and then working all weekends, and then flying to Los Angeles to cover red carpet on the weekend, and then coming back to an office job, Monday afternoon or whatever it was. And so I just go, yeah, you know what? I earned it. I deserve it. When people go and say, when people use the term lucky or blessed, I think that's a crock of shit. I view that as people going, I'm manifesting. I'm going to manifest it and it comes true. I've got a cousin who's like that. She fucking manifests happiness, love, money, whatever. And I just sit there and go, how about you get a fucking good paying job? You find she's in a relationship with a guy in Amsterdam, and she went there the first time, got knocked up, and now she thinks that he's locked in now. And it's like, bitch, he's got you flying back and forth and popping out a kid for him, and you're raising the kid, you're taking care of the kid. He has never come to Canada to come and see you. You're going there all the time, but you manifest that love, you manifest that money, you just live in your little fucking dream world. She's one of those people who's on Facebook and wants the subscriptions and the memberships to follow her life, and she live streams herself standing in the kitchen and making food and then watching for the comments to come in, and you just look at that and go, bitch, you're in your mid-30s, you have 5 kids. Yeah. One by this new dude in Amsterdam who you've seen all of 3 times since the kid was born 2 years ago. And everything is just this magical fairyland playing out on Facebook. Get a fucking life, girl. Get a fucking life. Spend more time with your kids. Spend more time. You've got a little retail job as, manager. I mean, I don't know how you could have a really decent job even when you're on your own. And the first baby daddy of the 4 kids is long gone. This one in Amsterdam, who knows if he's paying support or whatever. I mean, you're an assistant job. We looked into it, another cousin and I, because we're a bit of gossipy bitches, and we're thinking that she's making not even $40,000 a year. I mean, that's not even enough to live on as a single person. And then we look to see that she's, renting a side-by-side house in the poverty neighborhood of town, and you just look at that and go, wow, those kids they've got it made. And you know what's going to happen is those kids are going to have their fucking donation links on their social media pages when they're old enough, if not already. I know they're all underage, but they probably have Facebook pages, and they're going to be begging for money and donations. And it's like, how about you just get a fucking job, you pay for yourself, don't expect donations and subscriptions. Not everybody's a content creator. I said that on this show several weeks ago. I've said it all the time. Why is this the big, I'm going to exploit my kids. I'm going to put all these pictures of my baby and I'm going to, well, you know what? At some point, the kid is going to go and say, you know what? Delete all those pictures. And I even said this about 10 years ago. Kids are going to start to sue their parents because it's like, you've exploited my life. You've invaded my privacy. You've humiliated me. You didn't get my permission. But for some reason, because you're the adult and I'm the minor, you can control it. No, my privacy does mean something, especially as a kid. You're going to have perverts like Jared Fogle jerking off to girls in their Halloween costumes as Josie and the Pussycats. I mean, no, parents, how about you have a little bit more discretion and don't teach your kids to be fucking beggars? Don't be, because everything that my cousin posts, she'll post the comment and then she'll post the image or video, whatever it is, and then the first comment is, subscribe to my page. No, first of all, you're not even giving us anything interesting. It's one thing if it's going to be actual content of, hey, I'm doing household decorations, or I'm doing crafts and I'm doing and whatever. That's one thing. But you want to subscribe for $5 or whatever it is to watch you make a fucking sandwich in your kitchen, you lazy fat ass bitch. How about you go and people that just, what did Bonnie just said? You're talking about your cousin? Yes, I'm talking about my cousin. Because this is what I'm saying is you're going to set up your kids to be they want to be these content creators, and the reality is, get a decent paying job where there's regular income, you know what your paycheck is going to be, and not go, I didn't get donations this week, now what? I'm going to go hungry. No, you get a job, you know what your salary is, you know what to expect, you can do your finances, you can, create budgets and things like that. A content creator, fine, do it if you have an actual job, but don't look, I'm living proof. Look at what happened. I had to ask for a box of granola bars from my brother. Now, yes, things took a drastic turn and I rebounded and had a shit ton of money and was able to buy homes, plural. But not everybody has that work. Not everybody is meant to be a business person. Not everybody's meant to be somebody who's going to handle accounting. And just sometimes, you know what? It's okay to just work for somebody. Really, it is. It's okay just to be an employee. When it comes to financial stability, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I've got to tell you. I don't know. But for some reason, there's a generation that just feels that now they're just above working for somebody. I said this on the show either last week or when you go for a job interview, suddenly it's the candidate who's calling the shots and has their demands of the employer. I want to work 4 days a week. I want to work from home 2 days a week. And I mean, employers do that because they just need the people. No fucking way is that going to happen. I remember telling you that just the other week. I would never be able to hire a 20-year-old. We wouldn't work with a millennial. We would not, they wouldn't work in our office. It's just not something that, the mentality, the work ethic, it's not there. And somebody in their 40s or 50s or 60s absolutely is very appealing to our company, where we need a seasoned. If I post a writer's job, we've had our same team for 20 years. We're not hiring. We haven't had any turnover. We've got the same crew. But if I were to post a writing job, the business sense in me would say, yeah, find somebody who's new to the industry because you can get them cheap. That's not what we produce, though, at our company. When we have best-selling books, we had syndicated radio shows, we produce audio content for airlines and things like that. We can't have some juvenile amateur writer who's got no work experience and is fresh out of school. Not a chance. But somebody who's going to give me a resume that shows that they've done 20 years of professional writing experience, and you're 65 years old, you're hired. Absolutely. Will I take the 65-year-old over the 20-year-old? Yep. Every day. Every day. Bonnie Winters. Now, people are going to think that I'm throwing her under the bus for her age. She's in her 70s. And you know what? She's been our executive producer at this company for 20 years. She kind of retired, but I would have her. She would be my first choice to have somebody to write whatever we might need, whether, again, a press release or a newspaper column or a book chapter or magazine or like profile, something for a magazine. She would be my first choice in her 70s. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. I would hire a 70-year-old writer. Absolutely. 40 years in the industry. Because I'm not going to have to watch her. She knows what a deadline is. She knows to proofread. She knows to fact check. Yep. Absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. I'll take the 70-year-old writer. And I do. I have them. We have them. I'm almost, I think, am I the youngest? I'm the youngest on our team. No, we've got one younger person in our 30s. But our media company, I'm the youngest. Jeannie, I went to school with, she's, in her mid to late 40s. Suzanne's in her 50s. Bonnie's 70. Tim is 60. Yeah, we got an old crew. And you know what? It works. And none of us have a sense of entitlement. None of us are just, we're not panhandling online. There's just something that's just so awkward about it. I don't know. I even feel that about when people have a blog and they have the PayPal donation link. I saw that back in the day when I started online radio, and online radio stations, the novelty was, well, there's going to be no commercials because that's the whole beauty of online radio, right? We're just, it's going to be not much talking, not much commercials. It's going to be the music that you love, and then at some point they had to kind of realize, we got to pay the bills though. How do we do that, right? And so they had expected money from their listener. It wasn't money from advertisers. Now it's kind of like, well, you're enjoying the free content, so care to make a donation? I always saw that as very, very tacky. An online radio station having donations. And same thing with a blog. The donation link on the blog. Because it's almost like we're tipping you for your hobby. And don't even get me started about the tipping thing. I think I ranted about that the other week too. But if you can't figure out how to monetize the blog without just getting money from people, like as donations coming in, that's not a successful product. That's not being a business person. It's not. I don't get that not philosophy, but that strategy. I don't get that strategy. When I started to produce my syndicated radio show, and it was for an online station that had donation links, whatever, I always went into it as a business. I always said from the beginning, okay, how do I cash in on this? And so what I started to do was I was growing an audience, I was growing the show, and then I was reaching out to advertisers. And I was then kind of figuring out, all right, well, could I get a sponsor for this segment? Or if I'm going to, I wasn't doing celebrity news and red carpets at that time. That's not when I was doing my $1,000 weekends to Hollywood. This was like very, very, very early on, when there really was no cost to doing my show. It was essentially, I had a computer microphone at home and I would just record it. There was no cost to doing it. The radio station had the costs of streaming or whatever. So yeah, the show cost me nothing to produce. So anything that was coming in was profit, because I guess you could say that your time costs money or whatever, but I'm saying, right, I didn't have any expenses to it, so any money was a bonus. And that's how I viewed the show from the very beginning. And then that station that I was on in Vancouver couldn't make it work, couldn't figure it out financially. Everybody just wanted to be the star. Everybody just wanted to host their show, and that was it. Nobody wanted to do the selling. Nobody wanted to do the marketing. Nobody wanted to do the promotion and all that hard back end work. And so I did that, though. That was my thing, which was, I'm going to gather, I would write stuff for the show. It was only on once a week, but I would spend, a good chunk of the week here and there, an hour writing this or researching. Oh, here's a story that I can tell. And then at night, I would spend hours and hours and hours every night going from website to website, looking for a marketing email address or a PR email address. And then I would collect and make, I did it in Notepad. That's how amateur I was. I would do it in Notepad. I would just drop every email address, and then I was going to say spam. I guess it would be cold emailing. It was called a cold call back in the day, right? Where you just pick up the phone. Hey, we got this radio station, blah, blah, blah. But it would be a cold email. And I copied and pasted the message, the exact same thing. Hey, I'm doing this show. I'm growing this audience. I'm on, 5, 7, 9, 12, 13, 21 stations now, building this audience. Do you want to advertise? It's like $75 if you want to advertise. We got, and so I had to, I started to do things like that. But never would I have asked money from my listeners. Never. That would be like, and again, because I always had actual paying, I was a newspaper columnist. The newspaper is paying me. That would be like me writing a newspaper column and then at the end saying, if you like what you've read, here's my PayPal. That's just so unprofessional. So when I'm hosting my radio show, I didn't want people to know that there was not money involved. You absolutely want your audience to think there's money involved, just as people do on social media. Going back to what I said earlier, you pretend that you've got money. You pretend that you have this big glam lifestyle. And then we see what ends up happening is all these people are killing themselves. They're, all these influencers are dead from suicide. And you kind of go, wait a second, I thought they had such a glam life. Oh, well, the charade, right? The veil has been lifted. They didn't. And so for me, yeah, I looked at it as a business. I'm going to get the money from the advertisers. That's the way it was. I was not going to beg my audience. I wasn't going to do this whole, if you like what you hear, remember to, if you can shoot me some money, it really helps. No, there's a citizen journalist in my hometown who does that. He has this goal of raising, $5,000 for this next season. And it's like, wait a second, don't you have a column in the paper, the local paper as well? So you get money from that, but you're constantly like fundraising from your audience. No, land advertisers, get sponsorships. Don't just, again, it's one thing to pay for a product, sure, but then create a subscription then. But don't do these donations. Don't give us this campaign of raising $5,000, because that, again, just seems charitable. I feel like if you're trying to put forward a professional, or, yeah, professional would be the word. If you're trying to put forward a professional image, just like I was doing with my radio shows, you're not going to have a fundraising campaign and goal, because that just seems like you're not succeeding. Yes, you might be doing the work of investigative journalism or citizen journalism, but for me, here's the thing. I got to tell you, especially as a trained journalist, I did major in journalism in school. When I see these citizen journalists or whatever they're called now, citizen journalists or independent media is what they're called. When I see you sensationalizing or editorializing in your headlines, or name calling or saying that it's ridiculous, to me that's not journalism, that's commentary, and that's not the same. So for me, I wouldn't advertise, because I feel like you're passing it off as news, but then you're going in and name calling or editorializing and using, just, you're not being impartial. And in journalism, you're supposed to be impartial. So when I see these independent media outlets, one of them that comes to mind is Midas Touch. And they're always ripping on politics. At one time I kind of thought, well, that would be an interesting, channel to advertise on. They have however many millions of viewers. But then when I see the headlines that, so-and-so has meltdown on live, and then you actually watch the video, and that really wasn't the case at all. I mean, I can't be associated with that sensationalism. That's not quote unquote journalism. Right? They talk about we have the receipts and this and that. And it's like, but that's just not how a journalist talks. That's just not how news media is. You could go and say that, well, yes, in today's world, that is how, but then I don't want to be a part of that. I can't be a part of that. I'm not going to support it. I'll watch it, sure, but I'm not giving money to that. So anyway, back, they are, I know they keep telling me that I've blown right past. We're heading to the hour mark of this episode. If you like what you've heard, my PayPal is, yeah, I don't know. It's very strange to me, just circling back, and I've got to wrap this up now, but circling back to that whole sense of entitlement. I'm trying to think, if my parents were on social media back then, if my mom or you just had a certain level of pride that you wouldn't do something like that. I mean, if my parents were struggling financially, we certainly didn't know as kids. We did not know. Again, it was much cheaper to raise kids, and we weren't. I mean, we didn't take big family vacations. Like we never went on a plane together. I don't even know that my dad's ever been on a plane. So, it's not like we were doing vacations and my parents were spending out of their means. We just didn't do things like that. But I can't imagine my parents posting, basically, it's like a fucking GoFundMe page just to, raise your family. I mean, I look at that and go, if you can't afford kids, back to my cousin who's got 5, I mean, don't keep having them? I mean, is that kind of good advice? I mean, I don't know. I realize that things happen and, situations change and, life change can all of a sudden be you're financially struggling. But I mean, I guess you take those kinds of things into consideration, right? It's like when you get a dog and people go and say, oh, well, I don't have time for him now. Well, I mean, yeah, that's still no excuse. I mean, I realize that, yes, anything can happen, whether that's a broken leg and now you've got an unexpected vet appointment and that's going to be $6,000. But again, I mean, you know that stuff like that's going to happen. You know that at some point as your dog ages, they're going to get, whether it's cancer, arthritis. I mean, something is bound to happen. I mean, you can't be that dumb and say, I didn't expect this cost. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's no different than when you buy a house. It's no different than when you buy a house. Uh-oh, a window could get broken. Uh-oh, the roof could leak. Uh-oh, the furnace or the air conditioning could die. Uh-oh. I mean, you know that those are things that are happening in a house. Your air conditioning is not going to live forever. Your roof is not going to... A window is eventually going to have wear and tear and will need replacing. These are things that you kind of just sort of take into consideration, I would think, right? No? Am I completely wrong on that? Or am I just like... I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial expert by any means. But, when going into buying a house, I kind of knew those types of things, would come up at some point. Am I smarter than the average bear? Is that what it is? Like, I don't know. So I just feel like, yes, when we see these young, quote unquote, influencers, social media, and it's people in their 20s or 30s, it's not even necessarily just parents raising teenagers now. I mean, when I see grown ass adults with, a Venmo, here's my Venmo for my birthday. Like, wow. That'd be the day that I would go to my friends. So you can get me a present, you can get me a gift, but just even cash is fine. That's literally what people are doing. That's exactly what you're doing when you post a link like that on social media. You're basically telling people, give me money for my birthday. How do you not feel shame? How is that not embarrassing? How do you not just get icky, creepy vibes from that? I don't know. And like I said at the beginning, if I was a single person and I'm seeing, I'd be like, dude, you're fucking broke as a joke. I don't care how hot you are. You're a liability if I were to get involved with you. I might have even used that word to describe my husband at the beginning. Sorry, I was laughing. Bonnie, say it again. What was I? I called him a financial burden. All right, there you are. Not a liability, but that's how I spoke of my husband when he first came around. Can we get him on the phone? We're out of time. They're wrapping me up. Oh, just when I start to have a laugh. I like to put it all out there. These are my thoughts. Just as I talk through the points, I want to know your thoughts on this. Husband, if you're listening, you can email me. Yeah, tell me at home. Yell at me at home. The email address, live, live, at jbonair.com, live at jbonair.com. We're approaching supersized Scribble territory on this episode. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is indeed the Scribble, a little bit longer than normal. I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye for now.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com. Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.